Yeah, so I mean, I know that you are a composer. It's sort of how when I first, was introduced to you, it was because I was going to be working on one of your operas. So, what other besides composing, what other kinds of things do you do? And like, what's your deal?
I like that. That should be like the name of a game show. What's your
Yeah.
deal? Um, Gosh, I guess I mean, I'm mostly compose now. I still sing sometimes, but mostly composing and then teaching, and
Mhm.
sometimes singing, and sometimes playing accordion or other things. It's like it kind of it kind of just varies. um,
I feel like
yeah,
that
yeah.
comes along with what we do is sort of like as long as if we're requested to do something, as long as we can like finagle it, we're like, sure, I'll do that too. you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, because I feel like it's also it seems more stark to say like sometimes I compose and sometimes I play accordion or sing, but even like singing different styles is kind of jumping around in the same way. Like I know you said you do early music as well as doing new music, which are completely different things. Um,
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about this before that it seems like there's a whole niche of singers who sort of exclusively do those two types of music, new and early. And for me, I don't know about for other singers, but for me, it's like a completely different headspace. Um, and I mean, obviously, it can be very different vocally too, but for me, it just like maybe it shouldn't be so different, but I think it's just the way that I think of the two industries as being
yeah.
very different. Um, it's funny. I do work with a group called the Broken Consort, and and it's based out in Portland, Oregon, and that's one of the few times where the group actually does. It started out as an early music group, and it now also does a lot of new music, and we do a lot of medieval music, and
Oh
that's
wow.
where I feel like I do feel a ton of like overlap because with medieval music, a lot of times all you get is like one line, and there's so much that you have to kind of interpret, and we all do it sort of. We all like build it together. We
Yeah.
show up and like spend 10 days and build the whole program together. So that to me feels very like new musicy, even though what we're doing is medieval. So
Right.
it's like, but it's the same kind of process where it's like, oh, this is like happening right now, and it's gonna sound this way right now, and it never has before, or whatever.
Right. Or like
Yeah.
jazz almost even.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and improv too. Like, yeah, like classical improv or jazz improv or whatever. Yeah, it's so yeah, that's where I do sort of feel the overlap, which is cool. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. How did you get into music?
Just in general,
Yeah.
I guess I started taking piano lessons when I was a kid, like a lot of people.
Yeah,
My
me too.
grandma, yeah, my grandma was a church organist and a piano teacher. So my mom's side of the family, there are a lot of people who kind of dabbled in music but were not professional musicians. Like my grandpa used to sing in a barber shop quartet.
That's
Um,
cool.
and my uncle sang. I think he sang in barbershop. I don't know. He did some singing also, and then everybody on my mom's side of the family plays a flute or piano or something. But again,
Yeah.
not. Although my aunt is now a music therapist, so she was originally, she's very interesting. She was originally a plant pathologist, and
Whoa.
then she quit so that because she felt like she wanted to do something with music, because she was a serious flute player, and so she went back to school and became a music therapist in her, oh gosh, I think she must have been like late 30s, early 40s, and now that's what she does. She's a music therapist.
That's
um
cool.
yeah, yeah. So I guess that my mom's side of the family, there was music, but we weren't supposed to. it was supposed to be like a hobby, something you could put on your college application. It wasn't supposed to be
Right.
something that you actually ended up doing.
Yeah.
So that backfired. Uh,
It's always
clearly.
a risk. It's always a risk.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
started with piano too?
Well, I sort of was always just singing around the house. My dad, especially, was just sort of always playing music in the house. Like we we listened to a lot of folk music, like American folk, like Joan Baez and all those '60s, like Bob Dylan and all that. And then every March, like March 1st, we would start listening to Irish music, and it would
Hmm.
go the whole month because as being a Finnegan.
Right.
Um, and I think I think my real interest in like yeah, and I started taking piano. I think I started taking piano when I was maybe 6 or 7, and it was sort of in response to me announcing that I was gonna move to New York and be a singer when I grew up.
Oh wow.
um, yeah, because so every winter or every Christmas, my parents and I would go up to San Francisco. I grew up just south of there to see the Nutcracker at the Opera House, and it's just still like one of my favorite opera houses in ever. It's so beautiful. Um, and I think one year my dad picked up a flyer for the like regular opera season, and he
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, this looks cool." And so he got us tickets to see A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I think he picked that because it was like he knew it because it was a Shakespeare play, not knowing that like within the repertoire of like music, it's totally not I mean, it's I would call it standard, but for a lot of people who don't know opera, it's not standard.
Right.
And so when I was, I think 7, like in second grade or something, we went up to see that, and I was like completely hooked. I was like, I had always been singing, but I announced to my parents at that point that I was like, okay, it's opera. That's what I'm gonna do, and and it's still one of my favorite operas.
Wow.
Still.
No,
Um,
I mean, I think that's really lucky that that was your first one.
I think so too. I mean, yeah, and I think because, and from then on, it was like, my parents just were very supportive and they bought me like all the CDs and so I think, yeah, because that was like my first introduction to the world of opera, maybe that's part of why my aesthetic is so like, I don't know, I tend to skew away from the more like traditional sounds, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the production itself also was just like incredible, so I was like visually I was just like so I was so entranced, so that was I feel very fortunate, that my folks were so supportive of me, um, and like facilitated that, and from then on we would go to like 1 or 2 operas a season,
Oh wow.
up in San Francisco, and then I started doing like the musical theater thing, in my local community,
Yeah.
which you do when you're a kid, of course. So yeah, that was sort of my like my upbringing, my musical, upbringing, and then yeah, the piano sort of happened because of that. It was sort of like, well, if you're going to be a singer, you need to learn how to play piano. And I was like, okay,
That was really smart.
which was,
Wow.
and yeah, and I wish, I wish I had like continued more with piano. But I mean, I know enough to like for my purposes now of like learning music for myself, but it would have been awesome if I could like accompany myself, which I cannot do. But then I get to work with a bunch of awesome people who can play piano. So you know,
Yeah. I like that part of it though, because then you get to hear how somebody else would interpret it, which is it can be fun to sort of see like where you meet and where you have to argue.
totally. Yeah, I'm also just not a great multitasker, so I feel like singing already takes up like so much brain space. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Physical and brain space. So yeah, it's probably better. I don't have to do. I'm not doing one more thing like playing the piano.
But did you take voice lessons when you were a kid, or did that not start till you came to New York?
It started. I think I was like 14, and I mean at that age it's more like repertoire, and I was really lucky because when I was I think 17, it was the summer after my junior year of high school. I went to a summer program in Ontario in Canada
Hmm.
that was that was for singers and instrumentalists for like chamber ensembles. And I met the teacher I eventually went to study with at Manhattan School of Music, Edie Burrs.
Oh. Oh,
She was
wow.
so I went to study with her, and I also met Phyllis Brynjolfsson, who I then knew at Peabody later. So I mean, these two incredible women and like total forces of nature, and that was really because when you're studying, when you're singing, and you're in a small town. Of course, everyone's like, "Oh, you're so amazing," but you don't know how you stack up. You know what I mean? With in
Yeah.
the real world. And Edie was really the first like person who was in the industry, and like knew, who said you should come to New York and study with me at Manhattan School or Juilliard. And so I said okay, and so I did that for the next summer as well. And then that was really, I'd say Edie was one of the most like influential people musically for me, even just for the reason that she like gave me the confidence to make that leap, to say like,
Right.
okay, maybe I can do this for real, and then she was just always a wonderful mentor and like a great teacher too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's so interesting. I don't think we talk enough about mentorship and how that plays a role in where people end up.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Are you still in touch with them or
yeah. I actually just reached out to Edie like a few it's like in the pandemic. Found myself reaching out to all these people because I was like nothing else to do. And she emailed me back, and it was really nice to just be back in touch with her. And I always just felt like very supported, and she has this total like motherly. She has like motherly energy. She's just very like
mm,
sweet, and she introduced me to my next and current teacher, Bobby White. And so
mm,
and I talked to Bobby. I'm still studying with him, even though now I'm obviously right now I'm not. but yeah, so I feel very fortunate to have to have had really amazing um, technical teachers, but also just like life supporting, like people I just like look up to. And um,
yeah.
yeah. What about you? I know that you said you composing right in undergrad, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I my experience with singing in high school was mostly through choir, which I don't know if you had it being a fellow Californian, but I was in show choir.
I was
um,
not, but I knew a lot of people who were. Or yeah.
yeah, so we
Yeah.
were more, musical theater oriented. We wore sequin outfits and did choreography, and I had giant hair. Yeah, so I did show choir, and I kind of wasn't thinking about classical music. I thought I was going to come to New York and do musicals. And then, of course, I went to Sarah Lawrence, which is a very, the faculty at that school are very avant-garde people. So then I took voice lessons at Sarah Lawrence, but I was scattered because you didn't have to do a major. So I did composition, and I took lessons with like Hilda Harris was there, so I got to take
Oh
lessons
yeah.
with her. Yeah, and I guess I came out of Sarah Lawrence sort of like not. I wasn't like a polished singer because it wasn't a training program for singing. It was a liberal arts school, and so my first coming into singing in New York City, I sort of hooked up with a very bad teacher,
Mm.
in the sense that like this person's husband was a manager at Cami, and so she had all these really famous people on her roster, and part of the deal was if you studied or if you were represented by him, you had to take lessons with her. So like at that point
Mm.
in time, well, I shouldn't name. I'm still like nervous talking about it, even
I
though it's all
totally
these
get
years later. You know what I mean? It's so
it. Yep.
crazy. So basically she told me I needed to take 5 lessons a week in order to learn how to sing, and of course I was like, you know, I started studying with her before I graduated from Sarah Lawrence, so I'm like 20 years old and have no money, and I just started doing all of these tasks for her in order to sort of pay for lessons, like babysitting. I painted her apartment, I made food for her dogs, I walked her dogs, I did all of this
Wow.
stuff. And then she told me that I wasn't ready to audition for things, and that I shouldn't, I shouldn't talk to anyone else. And so I was having 5 lessons a week, but half the lesson she was talking about her other students, and I didn't really feel like I was progressing. So I decided to do an audition anyway, and I auditioned for Joan Patnode's thing in Urbana, and they let me in. And before
Nice.
I went, the teacher I was with, she said, they're going to tell you things, don't listen to them. And I got there, and they did tell me things. They said, now you've never taken voice before, right? And I was like, oh, well, no. Yeah.
I see why your teacher was skeptical about what you would be told. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So so I came back, and one of my friends who was in the same vocal studio, she told me that a bunch of them had a secret teacher that they were actually studying with, even though they were
No.
openly saying they were studying with this other person so that they could be represented by her husband. So I went to the secret teacher, and she fixed my voice, but it took a very long time. So, like, even though I was working when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't singing well. And I think I didn't really get hit my stride until like much later. So I always had this very fraught relationship with singing because it felt like I was always compensating for something.
Hmm. Wow. Gosh,
Yeah.
that's so harrowing. I mean, like being a young singer, even if like everything goes perfectly, is so hard, you know? And to have to deal with all that like drama and like
Yeah.
gaslighting sort of, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh,
And
that's
it
I'm
also
so
it
glad you
makes you
kept going, you know?
well, I think I just, because of my secret teacher, she was like, you have this potential. We just have to work through. But there are arias when I was still when I was still actively auditioning for things, there were arias that I had worked on with the first teacher that I could not touch. Like I still couldn't sing them because it would go back to all of these really bad habits that were just so ingrained in there. There was no way to get rid of them. And I don't know. And then of course, like years of in the meantime, I was working as a new music singer, which meant a lot of the time, because I'm a very high soprano, like singing straight tones on D's and things like that, which is not necessarily healthy either.
Yeah. I feel your
Yeah,
pain. I have to do the
yeah,
same stuff, so.
yeah. I was gonna say, I know.
Yeah.
In fact, I was noticing the way that we all have been sort of matched up for these interviews, and I was wondering if it was because of voice type.
Oh, I wonder.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. I don't know. That would be interesting.
yeah. So we'll have
Yeah.
to ask them at some point. It's either that or gender, which I would like to think that it's not gender.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've been thinking about, what this, over this pandemic period, I've been thinking about, as we talked about in our meeting the other day about, it gives you perspective on like, what's essential, like, what do you really want to be doing, and what are you just doing because of default or someone asked you, whatever. And so I've been trying to hone in on like, what were the experiences I had musically that seemed to kind of nail it as far as like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. And, like what and why, and what qualities did those experiences have, and how do I like go after those, I mean, in an ideal world, obviously you have to do more than just that. you know but yeah, so I want to ask you, is there something, in your recent past that was like that for you, where you were just like, this is it, like this is the thing and it doesn't have to be one thing, obviously, I mean, we're all multifaceted, of course, but yeah.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, I guess that's sort of what put me towards focusing on composition rather than trying to be a singer was the first piece that I ever made at here Art Center. I did this. It's been like 8 years now since we did this piece, but it was like I was working with my friends and it was a really amazing experience, all of us making this work together. And that still stands out as something that was really, really satisfying. Like, there have been things that have come close to that, but I think the difference is that we didn't have any producers attached. We didn't have anyone telling us what we had to do or what kind of box office numbers we had to hit or anything. It was totally scrappy, and we made it together, and it was like, and it sold out and it got rave reviews. So
That's so awesome. That's totally the dream. It's just like, yeah, to have. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like unfortunately, we've all had that experience where we pour our heart into something, and then it's just like, or you're doing something that's completely soulless, and everyone's like, you know, going
yeah,
crazy about how awesome it is, and you're like, ugh, you know. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
when those two things like, come together, it's total magic. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think even if it hadn't been successful, just the process of making it was so much better in some ways because we were the ones driving it. Like, I think that that's been, one of the challenges of being quote unquote successful in this profession is that you don't get to make your own decisions anymore. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, are you working with an agent right now or
I am, yeah. I mean, a few years ago, I signed with Nick Netos at Alpha Artists,
Mhm.
and I, yeah, I mean, when I sang for him, I sort of told him I was like, I'm kind of already like doing the kinds of things I want to be doing. I just want to be doing them at like the next level up, as far as like houses and just more,
Mhm.
Um, and he, it was really cool because I feel like in my career, one of the big issues for me has been, having people see me for the artist that I am and where I like fit in, especially within the like traditional opera, scene,
Right.
um, and Nick immediately was like, okay, so this is, I think, the kind of stuff you're going to be hired for. This is how people are going to see you, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, I agree. And that was like, great. And it went along with what I want to be doing too,
Right.
um, yeah, it's really great to be working with him. And he's really just, you know, um, he's also a really great sounding board. Like, I'll just email him and be like, what do you think about this thing and that thing? And I'm still hustling for myself just as much as I always was. I
Right.
just like, he's on my team now, which is like a nice feeling.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always curious about that with singers because like I never had an agent as a singer. I have one as a composer, and it's sort of
Mm-hmm.
similar in that like he's a sounding board and he helps me write contracts because I don't notice things like typos
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I always one of the things that I struggled with as a singer and as a soprano especially I think was fighting against this, especially the particular voice that you have and that I had also. And I think your voice is probably not even as light as mine, but somebody who,
Mm.
when you have a lighter
Yeah.
voice, then it's all these roles that are not that interesting for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I just wonder how people deal with that. Like, do you just sort of give into it, or? But it sounds like you're finding a good balance.
Yeah. And I mean, what I've sort of done with Nick is, I mean, when I first signed with him, um, he was like, obviously, I have my own ideas, but especially because I was gearing more towards like contemporary opera.
Mm.
And he, he knows a little bit about contemporary opera, but I think a lot of his clients are more traditional stuff. So he was like, send me an email of like all the roles and operas that you think you would be perfect for, and hopefully there's some I don't know, and so I'll like find out about them, and a lot of it for me was like, luckily more and more, companies are programming new works, at least maybe one per season, which is still not enough, but it's more than it was 20 years ago. So
Right.
yeah, so I sent him an email and I was just like, I've seen all these companies do these operas in the last like 5 years, and these are all the roles, and I realized it was really just like, you can make a career out of singing like two roles, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, like I don't have to learn like every aria that was ever written for my voice type, right? Which is, I feel like, the mentality when you're a young singer. You're like, I have to learn them all. Um, and especially if you're a quick study, like if you need to learn something for an audition, you can, right? So there's a few roles out there that I'm just like, anytime anyone puts that opera up, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go for that, or and because I do find contemporary music more interesting, I find the roles more interesting, you know. And then there's a few like more traditional roles
Mm-hmm.
like sprinkled in, too.
Do you do Lulu?
I haven't. I've thought about it, and I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and I've like printed out the aria,
Right,
and like looked at
right.
it, but I haven't actually. That might be something I could like use this time for, is to look at
Yeah,
that.
that would be great.
Because yeah, because I mean I love the piece. Like it's awesome. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I feel
Um,
like we have to talk about your snake because you're wearing your snake earring.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So I have two snakes. One's a ball python and one's a corn snake. And I got the corn snake first because they're supposed to be like the beginner snake. They're super
Like
low
there's a
maintenance. And
beginner snake.
yeah, well, some snakes require more like more specific like heat or whatever. Like weird requirements. And he's very chill. And never complains about anything. And and I adopted him, so he was already grown when I got him. I think he's
Mm.
like 2 or 3, maybe 3. And then I purchased the ball python like 8 months later, like
Mm-hmm.
last almost a year ago. No, just over a year ago. And I got him as a baby, so I'm
Mm.
raising him up, which is like a different experience. Um, and in fact, I just changed his diet. They eat rodents and frozen thawed. So I just changed his diet up to the next size of rodent,
Whoa.
and he got a little chunky. He's like
Whoa.
a little, yeah. So I'm feeding him once every 10 days instead of once every week, because I posted on like a snake forum on Facebook, and I was like, "Do you guys think he looks a little
Is
chunky?" And
he fat? He's a fat
they were
snake.
like a little. They were like, not yet, but like he could go that direction easily. And I was like, okay.
Ah.
So, but it's hard because they grow so fast. Like
Right.
he's growing so fast. So I'm sure in like 2 months he'll be an inch longer and won't be overweight anymore. But
I've never
it's just
seen a
like
fat
human
snake.
kids.
That's
Yeah,
really
I mean
funny.
they get like fat rolls like when they curve. You can see like it's pretty cute actually. Um, but they were like, it's not bad because it means you're really loving your snakes and you're not neglecting them, and because the
Right,
other
right.
side is people who forget to feed their snakes, and then
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
because they only eat like the bigger they get. I mean, the big ones might only eat once every 3 or 4 months, so it's like very
Right,
easy to be like,
right.
when did I feed it last? Um, but yeah, I'm totally obsessed with them, and I love them.
And pythons can live like 30 years, right? Or something like that?
Yeah,
Or
ball pythons are like, I have a friend who has one that's like 28 years old.
wow.
Um, yeah, so they're very long lived, especially in captivity. And corn snakes are more like 15 to 20, which is still like
That's
very,
long.
very
Yeah.
long lived, So, um, yeah, so Sala the python should be full grown around like age 2, 3 or 4, you know.
Okay, okay.
And they don't get very big. So
Yeah, I don't know about. I like. When I grew up, I lived close enough to the San Diego Zoo that we would go there all the time.
the best zoo. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah,
that zoo
yeah,
is
yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
So they have a nice collection of large snakes.
they do. Don't they have like a reptile house,
Yeah,
right?
they
Like I
do. They
remember
do.
that. Yeah, I went there. I don't remember. I must have been in high school. I think we went down there, and yeah, that zoo is incredible. And of course, I was like, I spent half the time in the reptile house. But yeah, they have a bunch of big snakes. But yeah, and you have two kitties, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Two cats. They're around somewhere. Actually, Ozzy, I thought he was gonna come and make an appearance, but then he changed his mind. So he might be back. But
Yeah.
they're like, how old are they? I think they're 6 years old. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We got them. I think I told you this. There's an adoption van that goes around
Yeah.
Brooklyn full of cats. You could just they pull up and you go and you look in the van and you're like, I want that cat. And they're like, okay,
So cute.
yeah,
Aw.
yeah,
And
yeah.
did you get them at the same time? Both of them?
Yes, they were cage mates, so you had to
Oh.
take both of them because
Oh,
they could.
that's nice.
It was actually it's a little sad because our other cat Momo, she had a brother who she's the sweetest, mushiest cat ever. And her brother, I guess, is also similarly friendly, but someone had already adopted him, so we just took her and Ozzy and her brother Tom. He was supposed to go to this family that already had a cat, so it was going to be okay because he would have a playmate. But then they didn't come and get him, so the adoption van asked if we could take him, and we couldn't because we were living in a house that already had two other cats in addition to the
Wow.
two cats that we'd just gotten.
Yeah.
And I still to this day am racked with guilt thinking about
Oh
poor Tom, and I
no.
hope that yeah, I hope somebody adopted him.
I'm sure he's
Hmm.
luxuriating somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, 5 cats is a lot of cats.
Yeah, I think it's too much. And we were at that point in time, we were living in one of I don't know if you've spent any time in Ditmas Park in Brooklyn.
I know it, but not. I haven't. I don't really know it well. Yeah.
So it started as the first suburb of Manhattan. It was
Oh
a
wow.
sort of a summer place where people had their summer houses in Brooklyn, which was cooler and greener and full of farmland.
Right.
So there are all of these Victorian manor houses
Oh
there,
wow.
and we were not living in one of those, but we were living in a freestanding house. Me and my partner Drew, and then another couple and their daughter, and so it was a house with a yard, but still 5 cats is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Were they? And are your cats are indoor cats? I mean, assuming
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Although their cat Bubby at the time he was allowed to go in and out, and he made mortal enemies with this pair of blue jays that lived in the tree in the front yard. And you knew every time he went outside because you could hear the blue jays start shrieking at him, and then he
Bossy.
would come running back in.
That's so funny. Blue jays are very bossy.
They are.
I mean, most birds of that, yeah, the corvid family, they're so smart, but they're also extremely cheeky and, yeah. I've
Yeah.
been watching them boss all the little finches around in my backyard. They're so pretty though.
I
Yeah.
think that he probably did something to deserve being attacked by them.
I mean, yeah, cats and birds
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
the friendliest of, yeah,
No.
relationship.
Ozzy actually caught a bird from inside our apartment here
Whoa.
in the Bronx, and neither of us saw this happen, but Drew came into the living room one day and there was a bird on the carpet, and all the windows were still like with screens on all the windows, but one of them had been punched out. So it seems that somehow Ozzy was able to punch through the
Oh my
screen and
gosh.
get the bird without it flying away. And I still can't really wrap my mind around how that was
Huh.
even possible, but
I wonder if the bird was already like injured or something.
probably,
It must have
probably.
been because otherwise it would have been out of there. Yeah, I hear people, saying how their cats bring them like sacrifices or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We in the during the change of seasons, between like summer and fall, we always have a week where we'll see evidence of mice in our house. And then once the season's over, once after that week, they go back outside or whatever. And this year, I was just like, ugh, I wish I could like, you know, just let the snakes out or whatever. But
Yeah,
A, I
yeah.
would never see the snakes again. They would be gone. And
Yeah,
B, it's like, with you never know where the mice have been. You know what I mean? So
right.
it's like, but it seemed like a waste, to put
Yeah,
out traps. And when I'm
yeah.
like have a freezer full of mice that I'm like thawing out, it seems silly.
Although our
Oh.
cats, like, the one time there was a mouse in our apartment, they caught it and played with it and then let it go. So they did not do their job.
Did not earn their keep.
No, no.
Oh man. Yeah. They need to be retrained for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah. What getting back on task, we kind of took a
I
animal, which is
know.
I could talk about animals forever, so that's fun. Um but yeah, I'm curious like when Kelvin, approached you to be part of QVL, what were your thoughts, and how did he sort of pitch it to you, and like, yeah, what were your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Well, he was talking about bringing together sort of a like-minded community of people, and it's funny because Calvin and I met doing a gig, so he knows me primarily as a singer, or knew me primarily as a singer before I I started to get more work as a composer. So God, I guess we've known each other a while. um,
Time flies.
yeah, it really does, especially when it's a pandemic.
Yep.
It flies and drags at the same time. Um, so, we were just sort of talking about what this might be, and I thought maybe I could be helpful in some way as someone who was a singer and then pivoted. So that was sort of
Mm-hmm.
the original thought that I had, especially in those early discussions when we were talking about more practical workshop type things, like
Yeah.
this is how to do a recording, or this is how to produce something, So in the beginning, I thought I was just going to sort of be more like a resource than anything else. Um, yeah, and then of course the thing of it shifted. So yeah.
The thing of
What were
everything
you
shifted.
thinking when you came into it?
I mean, honestly, I met Kelvin doing one of his Vital
Mm.
Operas workshops, and is that how I met him? No, I think I met him doing chorus work, opera chorus work at Bard for like the Bard
Oh,
summer
okay.
school. I think,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that must have been where I met him. Yeah, and then he hired me for some Vital Opera stuff. Maybe it's like it's such
A long time.
again a blur.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a long time ago. Um, and yeah, when he approached me about QVL, it's funny. I sort of had the opposite feeling where I was like, I'm not sure what I can really contribute, but it sounds really cool. And like, I think he mentioned some of the other people he had been talking to, and some people I knew and some people I didn't, but I don't think there was anyone who I was like, I have no idea who that is. I had at
Hmm.
least heard of people. And I was really just sort of like, anything that Kelvin is putting together is gonna be worthwhile. So like, sure. Like I just, yeah. But I wasn't, I was sort of like I felt a little intimidated actually by the like list of other people, because I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's like so good at everything that they do. And we all are. But no, it's really just turned into like such a beautiful, such a just like healing thing for me. I just I think I was mentioning before, I never really, as an introvert, I never really realized that I need at least a little, connection to my artistic community. Um, because I used to just get it when I would go on gigs.
Right.
And it was just there, always there. And so I was, when we started meeting, I hadn't realized how much I had been missing it until we had it in the meeting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really needed to be, back in my community, especially since my partner is not an artist, and
Right.
my kids are very well. My stepdaughter is very artistic, but it's a very like sporty family, so I'm definitely like the odd person out. Um, but yeah, but it just feels like culturally, my home family is culturally different than my artist family. So it's been such an like an unexpected um, you know salve during this time for me.
Yeah. And I think what's been interesting also to think about for me is like how the model in the US is so different. Like, we don't have resident companies here. And I don't know, there's something nice about seeing the same people over and over again, which you
Yeah.
naturally start to do once you're around long enough. Like, but it's not something planned out. It's something that you could be fortunate to have happen, and then
Right.
if not, then you're not really plugged in the same way. Especially considering how many of us are in New York or East Coast area. That I think that that's part of it, is like because you're naturally in the scene or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, then that stands in for the ensemble. But like, like I knew of Michelle Kennedy before, but I'd never. This is the most I've ever spoken with her, which has been really lovely. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's been really, and and like someone like Deshaun, I had known him mainly as like I was a chorister and he was a soloist,
yeah,
and he's always like, and he made himself, he made himself stand out because he would do things like we did the Handel and Haydn Society went down to sing with New York Phil for I think it was last year we did Messiah, and he was a soloist, and he gave all the chorus, he gave us this incredible spread of like cakes and cookies, and like left a note, and I was just like, who does that? Like that is just so not, and I was pretty sure, like I was like, he doesn't know me from Adam, like it's like, and he's just like the sweetest person. And so when I heard he was going to be on it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be cool to like actually have a conversation with him, because I always seen him as this like, oh, he's a soloist,
right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he's still just as amazing. It's so cool to, yeah, exactly. See people in different, and then there are people too that like I worked with as a chorister tons of times, but it's been a while, and I just like don't really know what they're up to now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been really cool. And yeah, I'm curious to see, where as the pandemic starts to come out, or as we start to come out of the pandemic, like what kind of like outreachy things we start doing with QVL. Um, and part of me is sort of like, no, I just want it to be our like the thing that we all do together, and
Our book
it's like
club.
this our book club exactly. But I'm heartened by the fact that I think it can always be that, and then there can be other things,
Right.
um, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah. Now we have to write the what Decameron or Canterbury Tales or whatever it is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
What is the
yeah.
when things open up? Where is the first place you're gonna go?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Um, my first thought was, um, there's a bar in Davis Square, which is near Tufts University, um, that my partner and I used to live closer to there. And he went to Tufts, so it's like been and it's been there forever. That we now and then we're like, oh, we really want to go to Red Bones. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
barbecue joint slash bar, and just a cool place. And my first thought was like, I want to go to Red Bones and like have a beer or whatever. you know,
Yeah.
even though we
Yeah.
didn't like go out all that often, and we haven't really missed it that much. Like we've been hanging out at home and on the back deck, or not now, but in front of the fire. But yeah, that's my first thought. What about you? That's a really good question.
So I have two. My first gut thing is I just want to go to a beach somewhere and just be on a beach by some water.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. And then two is Barbès, which I is this little club in Brooklyn where my band plays there sometimes, and it's like one of the last pockets of kind of small, weird music left
Oh,
in the
cool.
city. Like you can wander in there pretty much any night and there'll be something interesting happening. But they opened in Park Slope back before it was what it is now, and their rents are really high. So I'm just hoping that they make it through. And
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I would love to explore new like New York City spots too, because like that's the other thing too. I mean, I miss New York a lot. I used to be there constantly for work and stuff, and I took it for granted, because I and seeing my best friend Rachel, who I would stay with, and in Queens and everything, and yeah, it's you take it for granted, and then you don't have it, and you're like, no,
yeah,
um, yeah,
yeah. Oh, and then yeah, my we talked about this too. One of my favorite bars, Dutch Kills, which I hope is
yes.
also still
Oh,
there
me too.
after this.
We should definitely have a Dutch Kills date when all this is over.
Yes, 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 yes.
Because yeah, I mean I haven't been there in many years, many years. Yeah, I kind of forget about it. I forgot about it a little bit. But yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I love those like speakeasy. Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of yeah, like specialty cocktail, like
yeah.
suspenders and mustache.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. That is funny. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I've never gone there and not had a bartender who didn't have suspenders and some kind of large beard.
beard or yeah, some sort of
Yeah,
like
like
ironic facial hair
yeah,
situation. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, totally. Um, yeah, since we brought that up with like favorite place in Queens. For me, that sort of goes along with staying with my friend Rachel, and she lives right on the Gantries Park, which has like completely changed also in the last few years, but um, it's still one of my favorite places in like all of New York City. I just think it's so beautiful, and they did such a great job at the park. It's just really beautiful, and um, I love water. I grew up on a bay, and so like
Yeah,
being able to look at any water is just like so healing to me.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We were also like last night we were looking to see if Spa Castle was still open. And have
Oh
you ever
yeah.
been there?
I no,
It's
I've
like
heard of it, but
it's a
yeah,
giant Korean spa in College Point,
I've
and
heard
it's
I've
a
heard of it.
little
Yep.
sketchy.
Yeah. I've definitely heard people recommend it, and I'm always like, I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, it
Yeah,
sounds great, but yeah,
especially right now. We both of us are like, should we? No.
not right
They
now.
seem to be open, but
Oh
no.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, any kind of yeah, like spa situation right now, I'm just like, yeah. In fact, my mom and I were talking about. She lives in California, and she was like, when all this is over, you and I should like meet somewhere in the middle of the country and like do a spa weekend. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I'm already excited about
Yeah.
that, even though it's probably like 9 months away. Who knows?
Still,
But
I'm
yeah, I was like,
dreaming
oh,
about all the places to travel when we're able to again. Like we were talking about Colorado, which also has very good hot springs and things.
yeah. I was actually telling my mom, I was like, I have a friend who just moved to Colorado, and we should go there to like, yeah, because I've never been to Colorado, so I always wanted to go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One of Drew's really good friends lives in a town called Telluride, which is in
I've
this
heard of it.
like
Yeah.
jewel box canyon, and you arrive and you see this vista with like a perfect waterfall in the middle, and you're like,
Wow.
is this a real place? It is. It is a real place. People live there. Drew's
Incredible.
friend lives there. I live in the Bronx. Not quite the same.
Not the same.
No.
Different perks. Different perks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Speaking of, perks, what are the things you're grateful right now in your life?
I am, I'm lucky. I have work. I have a partner. I have my cat. I have an apartment that is not teeny, teeny, tiny. We have a fireplace. I'm
That's
very grateful
amazing.
for the fireplace.
That is really that just doesn't happen that often in New York. I don't think,
No, I
right?
mean, up here it's more likely because we're kind of on the edge of Westchester, so you do have
Right.
these freestanding houses, but still, and our landlord is kind of crazy, so we are going to have to move at some point. But right now, the fireplace is very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, actually, a lot of the same answers. I feel really grateful, yeah, to have my partner and have my quarantine bubble of my stepkids and their mom and like the two households. So it doesn't feel that isolated. And especially right now, to have a like a house with a backyard and be able to walk around, outside in nature, is really huge. I think because I think I would be a little stir crazy, if I
Yeah.
couldn't be outside, and we still, bundle up and trudge through the snow. There's like 2 feet of snow outside right now, but
Oh
yeah, it's slowly melting. But yeah,
wow.
um, but yeah, and I put up a bird feeder, and I've been watching the birds, which I've never like been into birds, but East Coast birds are, because I'm from California. Like East Coast birds are so
They're so weird.
they're so weird and
Yeah,
pretty to me. So I'm like cardinals. Oh my god!
I
So I
know.
seeing really, cardinals and even the blue jays that are kind of assholes, but still so pretty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, there are lots of critters outside. We have two resident groundhogs and turkeys. There's a bunch of turkeys that walk through our backyard all the time, which is hilarious. But yeah, I'm grateful just for like, yeah, the space and nature and the people that are around me. Right now. Um, yeah. Should we do lightning round
Okay, okay.
trivia?
Sure.
James Lipton style. I guess the James Lipton ones are later, but yeah. Do you want to go? Do you want to go first or me?
Oh, I don't have
I
it
don't
in
care.
front of me. So.
Oh, I'll ask you, and we'll go
Okay.
back and forth.
All right.
What is your favorite movie?
Ah, oh gosh, you're supposed to say what comes in your head. Nightmare Before Christmas came into my head.
I love that movie. That's so good. And I'm always like, should I watch it on Christmas or should I watch it
Or
on
Halloween.
Halloween?
Or both.
Both is the answer.
I
Yes.
think both is the answer.
I was thinking more about the favorite movie thing because I was kind of like, I love movies in general. But I really think anything by Wes Anderson, I really like. I
Yeah.
like him a lot. Royal Tenenbaums especially, just like really love that movie.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and it also
That's
has a really good soundtrack.
I
Um,
haven't seen that movie in a really
yeah,
long time.
I need to rewatch it. I think I own it somewhere, but then it's like, how do you play a DVD now? Because like none of my devices have a DVD.
Yeah, that's the problem that I've run into is that I have um all of these DVDs that I've collected. Like some of them are I don't even know where you'd get this movie now, but there's
Right.
no way to play them, and I feel like I can't get rid of
I know. I'm the same way. I have these like, yeah, these like books of just the discs, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
um, and then whenever I actually want to watch them, I can't find them, so then I just get them on Amazon Prime or whatever.
but But then I feel like I sometimes get stuck in this thing of like just watching movies that I don't really want to watch because I can't find anything.
Find the thing you
Um,
actually want. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that totally happens to me too. What
Okay, okay.
about? Oh yeah.
Current book, current book.
Okay, I'm reading. I have it right here. The Queen of the Night by
Oh,
Alexander Chi, and it's good. It's taking me forever because I'm reading it in like 5 minute chunks, but it's really
right.
good. What about you?
I am reading this book by a Buddhist nun called, and I can't pronounce her name. I'm going to say it terribly. Pema Chodron, called "When Things Fall Apart."
Okay.
Um, and it's sort of about like advice for dealing with difficult situations, which seems very appropriate right
Sadly, always
now.
appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What about favorite TV series?
Um, that's a hard one also because I don't know. I don't get attached. I guess maybe I'll say Buffy the Vampire Slayer because that
I loved Buffy.
yeah because I love that. I would watch it again. I
Hmm.
have watched it more than once. Maybe that is the criteria.
Yeah. Have you watched What We Do in the Shadows?
I saw the movie. I haven't seen the show.
We actually, Derek and I watched. We've seen the series, and we just actually watched the movie like 2 weekends ago. And they're very like they keep almost the same aesthetic. You know, it's like
Okay,
it's
okay.
really good. Like I highly recommend the series. They made a few changes, and for the better. I think it's really good. It's really funny.
Awesome.
I think my favorite though would be 30 Rock or Arrested Development because I could
Okay.
probably like recite every episode of both of those shows.
Oh
So.
yeah, Arrested Development. Although when it came back on
Oh
Netflix, it
no,
wasn't. Yeah,
the original whatever 3 season. It was like two and a like not a full third season. I think.
yeah, yeah,
With the original one is just so good, so good.
yeah.
Um, do you have a favorite meal?
Um, no. Although I guess I can always eat sushi.
I was just gonna say for me it's like sushi or Mexican food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pretty
Same.
much, yeah. And
California.
yeah, and I'm a pescatarian, but I turn a blind eye to the like beans with lard because they're just so good.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
just not gonna think about it, but because they're so good.
Especially in Southern California, I have to like throw down and say if you
Oh,
go to
totally,
any taco stand in Southern California, it's just amazing.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Um, yeah, I covered my I won't eat like
Right.
red meat really. Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Um, I won't eat octopus. I won't
Is
eat
it
octopus.
is it a taste thing or is it a? It's
It's
just
a
like a.
it's a it's a like meant because they're smart and I know
Yeah,
that pigs are also smart and I try not to eat pigs also, but I don't know. There's something about the octopus that I just like.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have the same feeling, and I think they're incredible. I think I recommended this to you already, but the book, um, The Soul of an Octopus,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good. Um, yeah, unfortunately, I probably eat octopus maybe like once every year, maybe, and I always feel bad
Yeah.
when I do it. But yeah, but it's like it's a treat, you know. Um, Is there a self care activity or item you cannot do without?
Yes. So the CF Bigelow makes this lemon oil stuff. So
Ooh.
I have lip balms and I also have a giant tub of lemon body cream. It's like giant.
Nice.
It's like it will last the whole winter.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. For me, it's the like very cheap hair paste that I use because it's like my identity is completely tied to my hair, and like even for the 5 minutes between getting out of the shower and like it air dries in like 5 minutes because it's like fuzz. I'm just like, who am I? And then I put it in and I'm like, oh. So yes, hair paste. I always make sure I'm like always or I order it or I get it from CVS like well in advance because it's just like
what brand is
it's not.
it?
I think it's got to be with the like umlaut
Oh
over the
yeah, I
O.
assume that good to be.
It's like so stupid. Yeah, but it's and now that I'm wearing my hair shorter, I really don't need much at all because it's like but I have to really glop it on when I need a haircut because it
Yeah.
weighs itself down and it's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, when my sister in her goth days, that was her brand also.
Yep. It's very yeah. I mean, it has good hold.
Yeah.
Which was always my complaint when I used to use a different one and I think it went out of they stopped making it and I was just like, oh my god. And so I went through a phase where I was trying new pear pastes and it was just like so many of them are just like they don't do anything.
No,
So
no.
so yeah, I will I'm sure I'll end up having to like buy it in bulk off eBay someday because like
Right.
I'll be 70 and they won't be making it anymore and I'll still need it. Yeah. I gotta try that the Bigelow stuff. I've never used that brand, but I've like it looks really good. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I it was a fluke that I started because I sometimes teach at the new school, which is two doors down from where the Bigelow Pharmacy is, and I ran out of lip balm, and I'm like a lip balm addict in the winter.
Me too.
I constantly need it, so I just went in there and like, all right, I'll get this, and then now I'm like, I must have it. I must
Yeah.
order it from them. I just
Yeah. I'm sort of like that with Burt's Bees, the like peppermint lip balm stuff. I have like every purse I own has it in there, and the car, and
yeah.
it's just like because I cannot not have it.
Yeah. So I also I have stashes in different places.
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right, now the James Lipton lightning round, whatever. Okay,
Okay.
what sound or noise do you love?
I love the sound of the ocean.
Oh, I think yeah, I love the ocean too, and also my partner sings in falsetto like as a joke when he's like pretending to be an opera singer, and I love that. It's hilarious.
That's good for him that you loved it.
Yeah, it is. He's like, man, I'm really lucky you like laugh at all the stupid shit I do. Yeah. What sound or noise do you hate?
I have now, through months of doing these online things, discovered that I hate the sound of people scratching microphones.
Ugh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was working on this sort of psychedelic space opera where everybody was performing from their apartments in front of green screens, and we
Mm-hmm.
had like a whole sound set up. Everybody was given a microphone and an audio interface, and then there was a production team that would do like video design on top of the green screens. But the beginning of every rehearsal for sound check, the sound engineer would say, okay, now scratch your microphone. So I get to hear like six people scratching the microphone. It's just terrible.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awful. Yeah. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I've actually heard anyone do that, but I can conjure what that would that would be horrible.
Yeah, no good.
um, I really hate the sound of other people chewing, which is I like a total thing that people have. And I didn't really ever think about it until my stepkids, because kids are just like noisy eaters, right? It's just kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just like, I'm sitting across from the table from my stepson eating cereal, and I'm just like, I'm gonna murder everyone. Like, just like getting angrier and angrier. Like, I feel like the room. Yeah. And what was what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would like to be an astronaut. Which I
Whoa.
actually, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to go to
Oh.
space camp because we all saw that space camp movie.
Hmm.
And my mom said, okay, if you can get straight A's until you're 11, which is when they let you go to space camp, like you have to be at least 11 or 12 or something. Anyway, she said, if you get straight A's till then, you can apply to space camp. So I did, and then I discovered, or our mom told me, and to this day I don't know if this is true or if she just said this to keep from having to pay for space camp. Um, she said, I'm so sorry, they don't let you be an astronaut or go to space camp if your eyesight isn't good enough. And
Oh.
I'm like functionally blind in one eye. I have really bad vision in my left eye because I had a lazy eye when I was a little kid.
Oh.
And so my dreams of space were crushed at that moment.
Uh, I mean, it to me it I feel like it makes sense for like being an astronaut, maybe, but like camp,
Yeah.
I don't
Camp,
know.
that's why I feel suspicious.
Yeah,
Because
I'd
now
be
I'm like,
suspicious too.
huh.
I'm sure at that age you were kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And plus, your parents, there's so much power in like being a parent because your
Yeah.
kids just kind of trust you, which is.
Yeah. Actually, my mom, when I was really small, she told me that if I got out of bed after the lights were off, a snake would come out and get me. And for years, I had this routine perfected where I would like turn the light off and jump into the bed so that my feet were not on the floor
Right.
for the snake. And it's amazing that I'm not afraid of snakes
I know.
after that. But
I was gonna say I'm impressed that you're not scarred by that
yeah.
character life. Yeah. Oh wow.
um, so what profession would you do?
I've always, as a kid, even I was always sort of like it'd be really cool to work at a zoo. I really love animals, and my dad was director of a natural history museum, like a
Mm,
little one when I was my whole childhood. So I always grew up around animals, and um, and especially reptiles. And now I've thought, in my older age, I wouldn't mind, you know, doing reptile or snake breeding,
oh yeah.
and getting into that. But it's interesting because it's one of those things where I think it's a pitfall of being a freelancer that you like make your hobbies into you try to like make money doing them or make a business
Right.
out of them. And I'm just like sometimes you can just like have snakes and enjoy them because you like them and not turn it into a business. So
Right.
so if maybe later if I want to breed snakes, fine. But I'm gonna try to resist not turning it into like a business because yeah, I just like snakes. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can wrangle snakes for operas.
I would love that. Yeah, if that would be so fun. If like, well, like pop singers all the time are like coming out on stage with Burmese pythons and stuff, a la
Yeah.
Britney Spears in her
Yeah,
Vegas
yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah.
So someone's got to be back there with the snakes, right? Yeah,
Snake wrangler.
snake lady. That could be me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, like I had to be out actually be able to like lift the snakes. So I can't have snakes that are too big because I'm
Not
not
yet.
very big.
You could work up to it.
Yes, yeah, I'll do my like snake.
Snake lifting.
Yeah, snake lifting. Oh my gosh, that's pretty. They're so floppy, it would not work. Yeah. Um, yeah. Cool. I think we did it.
Awesome.
Yay, that was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are
Yay.
you up to tonight? Are you doing anything fun
I'm
or
just
more
like,
work or
oh no, just working forever.
yeah.
But again, I did it to myself and I have work, so I can't really
Yeah.
complain, but I am
You can
complaining.
though. I mean there's always room for complaining. We can always
Yeah.
complain. Yeah.
I am gonna have a glass of wine. I'm
Good.
gonna do some yoga,
Nice.
and then I'm maybe not in that order.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That would not be great. Yeah, I need to get back into yoga. I did it like a lot. I did it very like every day for a really long time, and I had a back something happened to my back, and I just like it would get really cranky when I would do yoga, which is like
yeah,
annoying because I love yoga, but now it's anytime I start up again, my back starts to hurt, which is so annoying. So I have to figure that out because I even just like 20 minutes of like a vinyasa flow or something. It just like
yeah.
feels so good.
You know, I had this hang up. I stopped doing it because I always felt like I have to do a flow. I have to, dedicate like 45 minutes to an hour to it, and then I never did it. And so finally
Right.
I was like, you know what? No, 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I started doing the, like everybody, I started doing the yoga with Adriene videos because
Okay.
they're short and they're like easy. and I think it just, I had this mental block that I had to be really good at yoga, and now I'm like, I don't have to be good at yoga. I can just do it,
Yeah.
and it can be easy, and yeah.
Yeah, I had the same thing where I would go to classes and just be like, oh my God, everyone looks amazing. And then I was like, it's okay. I'm not a yogi. I'm a singer and I'm
Yeah.
me. And like, I don't need to look like the cover of Yoga Magazine. Like, it's fine. I have a few. There's one gal that I use. Her YouTube is Five Parks Yoga. I don't know if
Mm,
you've ever used that,
mm-mm.
but she has like a lot of different videos at all different lengths too. And I really like her because it's like the descriptions of the classes are accurate. Like sometimes I'm like, that was not an easy flow. You know what I mean?
Right.
But hers tend to be like when it's easy, it actually is easy, or like if it's vigorous, it's vigorous. So, um, but yeah, I tend to like about 20 minutes into a class, I tend to be like, that was about enough. I
Yeah.
don't know that I need to do anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's a good idea though. I'll do some tonight too. Um,
Yay.
Yay, cool. Well, thanks for doing this. And
Wow. Nice
yeah,
to
I guess,
chat. Have a
yeah, it was really,
I guess we're not gonna, yeah, we're gonna see each other in the new year.
yeah, I'll see you next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. And I'll talk to
Yeah.
you soon.
Yeah. Have a great Christmas
You too. Happy
and New
holidays.
Year, and New Year
Yeah,
also.
New Year. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.